The archive terminal flickered to life with a sound that resembled something dying in a ventilation shaft. Commander Vrell of the Galactic Survey Corps stared at the ancient database, his three eyes blinking in sequence as the translation algorithms worked through yet another dead civilization's final transmissions. "Let me guess," his assistant Kip muttered from across the lab, not bothering to look up from his own screen. "Another warning about the humans?" Vrell's mandibles clicked in what passed for a sigh among his species. "Worse. The Thalexians left 17 separate messages, all encrypted, all saying essentially the same thing, which is, don't go to the Sol system. The humans are guarding something, and whatever it is, we should leave them alone." Kip finally glanced up, his ear stalks twitching with interest. "The Thalexians went extinct 4,000 years ago. Exactly my point. This made it the 9th extinct species they had found with similar warnings. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore, and honestly quite annoying. Vrell had joined the Survey Corps to catalog ancient ruins and maybe discover some interesting technology, not to play detective with paranoid messages from dead civilizations. The thing was, nobody in the current Galactic Council took Earth seriously. Sure, humans had joined the interstellar community about 2 centuries ago, and yes, they were bizarrely aggressive and had an unsettling tendency to pack bond with literally anything that moved. But guarding something dangerous? The humans? Those same humans who had tried to domesticate a Vortan warbeast and named it Princess Fluffykins. The humans who had turned First Contact into a social event complete with something called nachos? Please, maybe they are guarding something, Kip suggested, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Like their dignity. Have you seen their entertainment broadcasts? They made something called reality television. That alone should be classified as a war crime. Vrell would have laughed, but his species did not possess the anatomical equipment for it. Instead, he made a wheezing sound that Kip had learned to interpret as amusement. "I am forwarding this to the Council," Vrell decided, initiating the transmission sequence. "Let someone else worry about it." That someone else turned out to be High Arbiter Fennix, who had the misfortune of being in charge of xenoarchaeological security. Fennix was a Caldroni, which meant she had approximately 0 patience for mystery and even less tolerance for bureaucratic nonsense. She read Vrell's report 3 times, cross-referenced it with the previous 8 warnings, and then did something unprecedented. She actually went to Earth to ask the humans directly. The human delegation met her at Luna Station, Earth's moon serving as neutral ground. There were 3 of them. Ambassador Torres, a female human with dark hair and an expression that suggested she had heard every joke about her species at least twice. Military Liaison General Park, who looked like he could bend steel with his bare hands and probably had, and Dr. Marcus Webb, their chief xenobiologist, who seemed perpetually amused by everything. "So," Fennix began, settling her bulk into a reinforced chair, "we have found 9 separate extinct civilizations spanning 4,000 years of galactic history, all leaving warnings about your planet. Care to explain?" Torres exchanged glances with her colleagues. Park's expression did not change. Webb smiled. "Warnings?" Torres asked innocently. "What kind of warnings?" Fennix pulled up a holographic display, cycling through the translated messages. "The Thalexians say you are guarding something dangerous. The Morbethi claim you are watchers of an ancient threat. The Galactic Empire's last transmission specifically mentions that humanity should never be disturbed, for they keep the darkness at bay." She paused, fixing the humans with her most intimidating stare. "What are you hiding?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Then Webb started laughing. Actually laughing. The sound echoing through the conference room like someone had released a hyena into a library. "Oh, that is rich," he managed between gasps. "They think we are hiding something. We are not?" Park asked, his tone flat. "Well, yes, but not what they think." Fennix felt her patience already thin, beginning to evaporate entirely. "Explain. Now." Torres held up a hand. "General, please pull up the Mariana Trench monitoring station data." Park tapped his datapad, and a new hologram appeared. It showed a deep ocean trench deeper than most species' atmospheric pressure could withstand. Various monitoring equipment dotted the seafloor, their readings creating a pattern of lights and warnings that made Fennix's thermal sacs contract nervously. "What am I looking at?" she demanded. "A prison," Torres said simply. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Elaborate." Webb leaned forward, his amusement fading into something more serious. "About 12,000 years ago, there was an entity. We do not know what to call it. The ancient humans called it many names, but the concept is universal across cultures. A thing that should not exist, could not be killed, and absolutely must never be released." Fennix's translator implant struggled with some of the human terminology, but the gist was clear enough. "And terrifying." You are telling me, she said slowly, that you have something imprisoned on your planet that has been there for 12,000 years? 14,000, give or take, Park corrected. The dating is imprecise. And the extinct civilizations knew about this, Torres nodded. Earth has been visited many times over its history. Most species took one look at what we are sitting on and decided that quarantine was the better part of valor. Some tried to help. Others tried to weaponize it. Let me guess, Fennix said dryly. They are the extinct ones? Not all of them. Some died of natural causes. But yes, poking the imprisoned elder horror tends to have a negative survival rate. Fennix absorbed this information, her mind racing through the implications. Why did you never tell the council? Would you have believed us? Webb asked reasonably. 200 years ago we show up with faster-than-light travel we reverse-engineered from a crashed probe, smelling vaguely of fermented grains and sporting enthusiasm that borders on mania. Then we tell you, oh, by the way, our planet is built on top of a cosmic horror that makes your nightmares look like children's entertainment. How well do you think that would have gone? He had a point, Fennix admitted reluctantly. So what happened to the Thalaxians? She asked. The ones who left 17 separate warnings? The humans exchanged another look. This one was less amused. They tried to dig it out, Torres said quietly. They thought they could study it, control it, use it somehow. They established a research base in the Pacific Ocean, directly above the deepest part of the prison. And 3 months later their entire species went silent. Every colony, every ship, every outpost, just gone. We found their last transmission about 800 years ago when we developed deep-sea exploration technology. They were screaming about the darkness, about things with too many teeth, about their children turning inside out. Park pulled up another file. This is what their research station looks like now. The hologram showed a twisted mass of metal and biological matter, fused together in ways that violated several laws of physics and possibly good taste. Things that might have been equipment pulsed with bioluminescence. Structures that could have been corridors spiraled into impossible geometries. Fennix felt her last meal threatening to make a reappearance. You left it there? She managed. We monitor it, Park said. Constantly. Any change, any movement, any sign of activity. The entity is dormant, has been for thousands of years. But disturbing the prison, trying to open it, studying it too closely, that wakes things up. The Thalaxians learned that the hard way. So humanity is what? Exactly. Jailers? Webb shrugged. Janitors might be more accurate. We did not build the prison. We do not fully understand how it works. But we are here, we are aware of it, and we make damn sure nobody gets stupid ideas about cracking it open to see what happens. The other species, Fennix said, her mind still processing. The ones who left warnings. They knew. Some helped build the containment systems, Torres confirmed. The Morvathe in particular were instrumental in establishing the quantum locks. They went extinct about 6,000 years ago, but their technology is still functional. We maintain it, improve it where we can, and absolutely do not advertise what we are doing. Fennix sat back, her carapace creaking. This is insane. Welcome to Earth, Webb said cheerfully. The High Arbiter considered her options. She could report this to the Council, trigger a galaxy-wide panic, and probably start several wars as various factions tried to claim or destroy the entity. She could classify the information, hide it away, and hope nothing went wrong. Or she could do something completely unprecedented. I need to see it, she decided. The humans looked at each other. Park frowned. Torres grimaced. Webb just laughed again. Are you sure? The ambassador asked. It is not exactly a tourist attraction. I am sure. If I am going to keep this secret, if I am going to help maintain the deception that humanity is just a friendly if slightly unhinged species of pack-bonding maniacs, then I need to understand exactly what we are hiding. Park stood. All right, but fair warning. People who look directly at the containment field tend to have nightmares for months afterward. I will take my chances. 3 hours later, Fennix found herself in a submarine designed for pressures that would crush most starship hulls, descending into the Mariana Trench at a rate that made her inner ear equivalent scream in protest. The human crew operated with casual efficiency, monitoring systems and adjusting ballast like they did this every day, which Fennix realized with growing horror they probably did. Approaching the perimeter, announced the pilot, a young human female named Lieutenant Garcia. Activating secondary shielding, the submarine's lights dimmed, and something hummed to life around them. Fennix felt her skin prickle with energy that her species should not have been able to detect. What is that? She asked. Psychic dampeners, Webb explained. He had insisted on accompanying her, claiming scientific curiosity. The entity is dormant, but it dreams. and its dreams have a nasty tendency to leak into nearby mines. The dampeners keep us sane. How reassuring. The submarine descended further and the water outside the viewports turned from dark blue to absolute black. Then, gradually, light began to appear. Not natural light, nothing warm or welcoming. This was a sickly green phosphorescence that seemed to pulse with malevolent awareness. That is the outer containment field, Park said. Quantum-locked energy barriers maintaining a space-time bubble around the entity. Think of it as a bottle within a bottle within a bottle, each one reinforcing the others, and if one breaks, then we activate the fail-safes, seal the breach and pray really hard that nothing got out. The submarine moved into position above what the sensors indicated was a massive crater, easily several kilometers across. The green light intensified and Fennix could see structures within it, geometric patterns that hurt to look at, angles that should not exist in three-dimensional space, symbols that seemed to writhe and change when observed directly. This is the Thalexian Research Station, Torres said, pointing to a section of twisted metal. Or what is left of it. And below that? Below that is the prison proper. And below that, she trailed off, is the thing itself, Fennix finished. Yes, the High Arbiter stared into the green-lit abyss and for just a moment she thought she saw something move. Something vast. Something that noticed her noticing it. Then the dampeners kicked in harder and the sensation vanished, leaving only a bone-deep certainty that some things should remain buried, forgotten, and absolutely undisturbed. I have seen enough, Fennix said, her voice barely steady. Take us up. The ascent felt like it took hours, though the chronometer insisted it was only 40 minutes. Nobody spoke. The crew focused on their instruments with the kind of concentration that suggested they too had felt that momentary awareness, that terrible recognition. Back on Luna Station, Fennix submitted her report to the Council with exactly 3 words: maintain current status. The questions came immediately, of course. What had she found? What were the humans hiding? Should they send a larger investigation team? Fennix shut them all down with bureaucratic efficiency that would have made a Vogon proud. The humans were no threat. Their world was properly monitored. There was nothing to investigate. End of discussion. Most of the Council accepted this. A few grumbled, but backed down when Fennix made it clear she would resign rather than elaborate. One persistent idiot from the Zelvan Consortium kept pushing for more information. His ship experienced a catastrophic navigation failure 3 days later, stranding him in a perfectly safe but incredibly remote system where it would take rescue crews approximately 6 months to reach him. Fennix did not ask how that happened. She suspected Park was involved. She definitely did not complain. Humanity remained the galaxy's favorite weirdos, friendly, enthusiastic, prone to adopting dangerous fauna and making terrible entertainment. Nobody suspected they were jailers of cosmic horror, and that, Vrell thought when he received the final classified report, was probably for the best. Some secrets should stay buried, some warnings should be heeded, and some jobs were just too important to be interrupted by curious xenoarchaeologists with delusions of importance. He deleted his file, scrubbed the data, and went back to cataloging far less terrifying ruins. Sleep came easier that way. 6 months after Fennix's little expedition to the bottom of the ocean, everything was going remarkably well. The secret remained secret. The Council stayed blissfully ignorant. Humanity continued being humanity, which meant they had recently started a cultural exchange program involving something called competitive eating that had horrified every species with a functioning digestive system. Then the Korthax showed up and everything went sideways in a hurry. The Korthax were what happened when you gave a species military technology before they developed basic empathy. They had conquered 47 star systems through sheer brutality and seemed genuinely confused when other species objected to their methods. Diplomacy, in their view, was just war with more talking and less immediate bloodshed. Their warship dropped out of hyperspace directly above Earth without authorization, warning, or even basic courtesy. Admiral Jessica Hunt of Earth's Defense Fleet sent them approximately 30 hails asking politely what the hell they thought they were doing. The Korthax response was to launch 12 probes directly at the planet's surface, targeting the Pacific Ocean with suspicious precision. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Commander Davis reported from the tactical station, his voice tight with concern. "Those probes are equipped with deep penetration drilling equipment." Hunt felt her blood pressure spike. "Target vectors, Mariana Trench. All 12 are heading straight for the containment zone." Every officer on the bridge went very, very still. Hunt activated the emergency channel that connected directly to General Park's office. He answered before the first tone finished. "I see them," Park said, his face appearing on screen. "Shoot them down. All of them. Authorization code Delta Omega 9. Use whatever force necessary." Hunt did not need to be told twice. "Weapons free." Target those probes now. Earth's defense grid lit up like a festival celebration. Except instead of fireworks there were railgun slugs traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The first 3 Korthax probes disintegrated spectacularly, their debris raining into the ocean with enough force to trigger tsunami warnings across 6 nations. The remaining 9 deployed countermeasures, proving that the Korthax had done their homework. Decoys scattered across the sky, jamming signals flooded the communication channels, and the probes dove toward the ocean surface at velocities that should have torn them apart. Should have. Did not. They have military-grade shielding, Davis shouted. Our targeting solutions are scattered. Hunt slammed her fist on the armrest. Go to manual targeting. Get me every pilot we have in the air. I want those things stopped before they reach the water. Across the globe, scramble alerts blared. Fighter craft launched from carriers, from land bases, from orbital platforms. Human pilots, along with their alien allies who had joined Earth's defense forces, pushed their engines to maximum and raced against physics itself. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka reached the first probe while it was still 300 meters above the ocean. She did not bother with missiles or energy weapons. Instead, she did something that made her flight instructor weep. She rammed it. Her fighter's reinforced nose cone struck the probe's shield generator at precisely the right angle, at precisely the right speed, collapsing the field and sending both craft spiraling into the sea. Tanaka ejected half a second before impact, her parachute deploying over water that was already churning with rescue helicopters. Probe 4 is down. Someone cheered over the comm. 8 more to go, Hunt said grimly. And we are running out of altitude. The Korthax warship, apparently deciding that subtlety was overrated, began firing on the human defense fleet. Their weapons were crude but effective, basically just accelerating chunks of metal to ridiculous speeds and hoping they hit something important. They did. The orbital defense platform, Guardian 7, took a direct hit to its power core and went dark, tumbling out of position. 3 fighter craft vanished in brilliant flashes as kinetic rounds found their targets. The cruiser Valiant reported hull breaches on 6 decks, and still the probes descended. Captain Paulo Silva, flying an older model interceptor that had seen better decades, managed to position himself directly in the path of Probe 6. His targeting computer was dead, his shields were failing, and his weapons had approximately enough charge for 1 good shot. He took it. The probe exploded 200 meters from the water and Silva's fighter flew through the debris cloud trailing smoke and sparks but still airborne, still fighting. That is 7 down, Hunt announced. Keep it up, people. Then Probe 8 hit the water, its drill activating immediately. The ocean began to boil as it burrowed downward at terrifying speed. Time to containment breach, Hunt demanded. The response from the monitoring station was not encouraging. At current speed, 16 minutes. Park's face appeared on every screen simultaneously, his expression carved from stone. Execute protocol nightmare. Authorization code verified. Do it now. Hunt had hoped she would never hear those words. Protocol nightmare was the absolute last resort, the thing they did when everything else had failed and the only option left was to contain the damage rather than prevent it. You heard the general, she said quietly. Activate protocol nightmare. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, systems that had been dormant for thousands of years rumbled to life. The ancient technology left by the Morthite, maintained and improved by humanity, began channeling power on scales that made fusion reactors look like birthday candles. The containment field strengthened, layers of quantum-locked energy reinforcing themselves in patterns that would make theoretical physicists weep with joy or confusion, possibly both. But strengthening the inner prison meant weakening the outer barriers. The 5 remaining probes sensed the shift and accelerated, their drilling equipment screaming through water and rock like it was barely there. Commander Vrell, monitoring the situation from his research station 3-star systems away, watched the data feeds with growing horror. He had received clearance to observe after Fennix's visit, given his role in discovering the warnings. Now he wished he had stayed ignorant. Kip, he said slowly, tell me those readings are wrong. His assistant checked the instruments twice. They are accurate. The Korthax probes are about to breach the outer containment layer. Can the humans stop them? Unknown. But Commander, the energy readings from Earth are climbing into ranges I have never seen before. Whatever they are doing down there, it is either going to save them or destroy the planet. Possibly both. Back on Earth, General Park stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by monitors showing every angle of the crisis. Dr. Webb stood beside him looking considerably less amused than usual. The entity is stirring, Webb reported, his voice clinical despite the sweat on his forehead. We are detecting dream leakage across 17 monitoring stations. Psychic dampener efficiency is down to 62%. Will the protocol hold? Park asked. Ask me again in 10 minutes. Probe 9 reached the containment field and began drilling. Its equipment, designed to penetrate planetary crusts, met the quantum barriers and found them considerably more resistant than expected. The probe's AI recalculated, adjusted power levels and kept drilling. Inside the submarine that had never left the Mariana Trench after Fennix's visit, Lieutenant Garcia watched her instruments with the calm of someone who had accepted that insanity was just another job requirement. We have breach initiation on Quadrant 7, she reported. The probe is through the first layer. Second layer holding? Asked the engineering officer. For now. But Commander, I am seeing pattern fluctuations in the primary containment geometry. The entity knows something is happening. Of course it does, Webb's voice crackled through the comm. It has been waiting for this for 14,000 years. Stay calm, maintain your dampeners, and whatever you do, do not look directly at the readings from the core sensors. Why not? Because 3 technicians already did, and they are currently sedated in medical, screaming about angles that eat light and sounds that taste like copper and existential dread. Garcia very carefully kept her eyes on the safe instruments. Above the ocean, the battle continued with desperate intensity. Probe 10 fell to a coordinated strike by 4 fighters working in perfect synchronization. Probe 11 made it into the water but suffered catastrophic failure when a human submarine showing either incredible bravery or complete insanity rammed it at full speed. The submarine crew evacuated successfully, mostly. The captain insisted on going down with his ship, which was apparently a tradition, until his first officer knocked him unconscious and dragged him to the escape pod. Tradition was important, but survival was important. That left 3 probes drilling toward the containment field, and Probe 9 had just breached the second quantum layer. 8 minutes to core exposure, Webb announced. Park, we need to make a decision. What are the options? Option 1. We trust the containment field and hope 14,000 years of engineering holds against modern drilling technology. Option 2. We collapse the entire field deliberately, flooding the area with enough energy to vaporize the probes but also weakening our long-term containment. Option 3. We use the failsafe. Park closed his eyes briefly. The failsafe was something humanity had built 500 years ago when they truly understood what they were sitting on. It was a weapon that would destroy the entity, the containment field, the Mariana Trench, and a significant portion of the Pacific Ocean, possibly also the tectonic stability of the region, leading to earthquakes that would make ancient disasters look gentle. How many casualties for option 3? He asked quietly. Conservative estimate 400 million. Realistically, probably closer to 1 billion once we factor in the secondary effects. And if we do nothing and the entity escapes? Webb met his eyes. Everyone. Everything. Not just Earth. The entity does not think in terms of planets or species. It thinks in terms of reality versus not reality, and it strongly prefers the latter. Then we hold, Park decided. Trust the containment. Stop those probes. Admiral Hunt, listening to the entire exchange, felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had fought in 3 wars, survived ship-to-ship combat that left her vessel held together by duct tape and spite, but she had never felt fear quite like this. All remaining units, she broadcast. Concentrate fire on Probe 9. It is the deepest, kill it now. Every weapon still functional in Earth's defense grid turned toward a single point in the Pacific Ocean. Energy beams superheated the water. Railgun slugs created pressure waves that killed fish for miles around. Missiles dove beneath the surface, trailing bubbles and determination. The probe's shields held for exactly 4 seconds before the sheer overwhelming violence collapsed them. The probe itself lasted another 2 seconds before it became debris, its drilling equipment shattering against rock that was already reinforced by containment energies. Probe 9 is destroyed, Davis reported, his voice cracking with relief. 2 left, Hunt said. Keep going. Probe 12 never made it to the water. Captain Silva, his fighter held together by prayers and emergency patches, managed one more shot that detonated the probe's power core. The explosion was visible from orbit, a brief new sun over the Pacific. Silva did not eject this time. His fighter was too damaged, falling too fast. He aimed for the ocean, hoping the water would cushion the impact enough for him to survive. It did not. Recovery teams found his fighter 3 days later, crumpled at the bottom of a relatively shallow section of the continental shelf. They also found Silva's last transmission, recorded automatically when his systems failed. Tell my daughter, I love her. Tell Park the probe is dead. Tell everyone the ocean is beautiful from up here. He received a posthumous medal and a state funeral. His daughter, who was 7, gave a speech that made hardened soldiers weep, but that was later. In the immediate moment, Only Probe 11 remained, and it was drilling fast. It breached the second quantum layer, then the third. The entity stirred, and even through the dampeners, every human on the planet felt something cold touch the back of their mind. Children woke screaming. Adults found themselves forgetting how to breathe for several seconds. Artists suddenly understood colors that should not exist and spent months trying to paint them, failing, trying again. Containment field integrity at 40%, Webb reported, his hands shaking. It is almost through. Park watched the monitors, watched the probe descend, watched the entity wake. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. Webb, remember that crazy idea you had about using the Thalexian station remains as a weapon? The one you said was too dangerous and too insane? Yes, that one. Do it. Webb's fingers flew across his console. The twisted metal and impossible geometry of the old research station, still fused to the containment field after 4,000 years, suddenly received power for the first time since the Thalekians died screaming. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The probe, drilling through what it thought was ordinary quantum-locked energy, suddenly found itself inside a space where physics took suggestions rather than orders. Its AI, sophisticated but still bound by logic, tried to process angles that added up to more than 360 degrees in dimensions that existed perpendicular to reality. It failed spectacularly, melting into a puddle of component elements that defied the periodic table. Probe 11 is neutralized, Webb said faintly. Also, I think I just committed several crimes against nature. Add them to the list, Park replied. Containment status, stabilizing. The entity is returning to dormancy. We are not all going to die today. In orbit above Earth, the Korthax warship found itself surrounded by every functional vessel in the human fleet, along with several ships from allied species who had decided that attacking Earth was a terrible idea, and they wanted everyone to know they disagreed with it strongly. The Korthax commander, Captain Vrell of the 83rd Conquest Fleet, stared at the tactical display with confusion. His mission had been simple: test Earth's defenses, probe their secrets, acquire whatever they were hiding for his government's use. Instead, he had lost 12 probes, started a battle he was losing, and apparently annoyed humanity so thoroughly that they were now discussing which pieces of his ship they wanted to keep as trophies. Surrender, Admiral Hunt suggested pleasantly. Or we turn your ship into an expanding cloud of regret. Vrell considered his options. He could fight, die gloriously and accomplish nothing, or he could surrender, face court-martial, and live to regret his decisions in a variety of painful ways. He chose surrender. The Korthax government, upon learning what their idiot captain had done, immediately disavowed all knowledge of the operation. Then they sent 12 ambassadors to Earth with enough apology gifts to fill a cargo ship, along with a formal treaty promising they would never ever under any circumstances go anywhere near the Pacific Ocean. They also executed Captain Vrell, which seemed excessive, but nobody felt particularly sympathetic. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the incident. Fennix attended with a prepared statement that boiled down to, "This is exactly why we do not poke at things we do not understand. You absolute buffoons." It was remarkably effective. New regulations passed unanimously. Earth was declared off-limits for unauthorized research. The Pacific Ocean specifically was designated a restricted zone. Any species caught attempting to investigate humanity's secrets would face sanctions, fines, and the collective judgment of every civilization that valued continued existence. Commander Vrell received a promotion and a strongly worded suggestion to never ever mention the warnings again. He agreed enthusiastically. Kip got a bonus and spent it on recreational substances that helped him forget what he had seen in the data feeds. It mostly worked. On Earth, life returned to something resembling normal. The dead were mourned, the heroes were celebrated, and the containment field was reinforced with new technologies based on what they had learned during the crisis. Dr. Webb published a paper on quantum geometry that won 3 awards and got him banned from 4 scientific conferences for including mathematics that caused headaches and existential questions. General Park retired 6 months later, citing stress and a desire to spend time with his family. He moved to a cabin in Montana, far from any ocean, and took up woodworking. Admiral Hunt took his place, becoming the youngest person to ever command Earth's planetary defense. Her first order was to triple the number of submarines monitoring the Mariana Trench. Her second order was to establish a secret research division dedicated to understanding the entity without disturbing it. This went about as well as expected, which meant they learned absolutely nothing useful, and 3 researchers had to be permanently reassigned to Antarctica for their own mental health. But the containment held. The entity slept, and humanity continued its role as jailers, janitors, and guardians of a secret that the galaxy was happier not knowing. Fennix visited Earth 1 year after the Korthax incident, attending a memorial service for the fallen defenders. She stood beside Ambassador Torres, watching the names scroll past on the monument. Do you ever regret it? Torres asked quietly. Keeping the secret? Fennix considered the question, thought about the alternative, about what would happen if everyone knew what lay beneath Earth's ocean. No, she said finally. Some truths cause more harm than ignorance. Your species understands that better than most. We have had practice, Torres replied. 14,000 years of practice. They stood in silence for a while, watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean, beautiful and peaceful and hiding horrors that would break minds and shatter worlds. It was, Fennix decided, a very human sort of responsibility. Terrible, necessary, and carried with the kind of stubborn determination that refused to accept defeat even when defeat seemed inevitable. No wonder the ancient civilizations had left warnings, not because humanity was dangerous, though they certainly could be, but because humanity was committed to their duty in a way that transcended reason, survival instinct, and common sense. They would guard the entity until the stars died. They would maintain the prison until reality itself ended. They would protect the galaxy from a threat it did not know existed, without recognition, without glory, without rest, because somebody had to. And humanity, against all logic and probability, had decided that somebody was them. The universe was safer for it, even if the universe would never know. Somewhere deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in the space between quantum layers and behind barriers of ancient technology, the entity dreamed. It dreamed of freedom, of reality unmaking itself, of the beautiful silence that would come when everything stopped existing, but mostly it dreamed of the watchers above, those strange, persistent creatures who refused to give up, refused to give in, refused to let darkness consume the light. And in its own incomprehensible way, the entity almost respected that. Almost.